I have good feelings about it. It's just the festivities of the day, and just remembering that slavery came to an end that day. I'm all for the Juneteenth Parade because it teaches our children not to forget the struggles that black people had to go through in order to get here today. Juneteenth celebration to me, it means a remembrance of all the time that our forefathers spent in slavery and the excitement that they must have shared on the day that they received their freedom, 19th of June, 1865. In 1963, I was 13 years old when they passed the Civil Rights Act. When school was segregated, like in 1965, I was about 15 years old, so I was right there in the middle of all. It was kind of scary, in a lot of sense it was kind of scary. You know, just like wondering what was going to happen and what the future was going to hold for us. When I was in Houston and schools were actually desegregated, I was in about the 10th grade, but I still chose to go to the other school that was across town because that's where I was accustomed to going to. And my father really didn't want us caught up in the violence of the civil rights movement. And he sent us to the black school instead. But there was a white school that was about 5 blocks from my house, but we had to go to the school all the way across town. That was like 13 miles from there, doing desegregation.
What was that like for you back then, to be separated and to not have as many rights?
It was kind of hard because it was at the time when black people were beginning to stand up for their rights and beginning to really demand their rights, and that's when we were really educated as to what we were actually missing out on. That separate but equal, all that type of stuff. I was 18 years old on the day that Martin Luther King was assassinated. So like during the time when I was 14, 15, 16, 17, that's when the civil rights movement was at its height. At that time I felt like Martin Luther King was a little too conservative for me because of the Black Power movement that was going on at that time, and it was more radical. And by me being young and anxious and ready to get things done immediately, I was more with people that wanted immediate results. I like Malcolm X. He was for immediate action. And my father always sent us to the segregated school because he didn't want us to get caught up in the violence that was associated at that time.
How many children do you have?
I have 4 boys. Bring back a lot of memories. Watching my kids grow up in a desegregated school, and I always point out to them that the advantages that they have by going to these desegregated schools that we would never afford it. As far as extracurricular activities and participating in things, just being a more productive member of society. We had football at our school. In fact, I guess that one of the best advantages I guess you could say is like equipment and materials to work with. Jack Gates at the time, he was one of the premier schools, black schools in Houston. But since then, going to and seeing what they have at other schools and seeing how much more other schools had than what we had, and sometimes it just amazed me as far as how much that we had to do without. It's a lot better in a lot of ways, and even when my children were in school, I used to always emphasize them the importance of getting an education and how many people actually died for their rights to be in these type of schools, and to have a right to an education. And I always demanded that they did everything they could to get their education.
You graduated from a colored school?
I graduated from Jack Gates Senior High School in Houston. And Jack Gates was like one of the premier schools of Houston. I feel like I got a quality education there. I also graduated from Texas Southern University. I had a double major in history and journalism, and my minor was photography.
Free at last, free at last, free at last. And the last words he said was, thank God, we free at last. People had to go through so much struggle to get where we are today. They said things wouldn't happen, but it did.